Hi. Happy. Okay.
You're live.
Hi. Happy Cinco de Mayo and happy rainy day from Northwest Illinois. Andrew's going to tell me we've got some viewers. Thank you. Already waiting for us. We're going to wait a couple more minutes and see if we have anybody else join us, and then we'll just start. So today we get to start book 2 from Tales Around the Jack-o'-lantern. Let me show you what this is. So we finished all the way through the first book. Now we're on to book 2, and book 2 is set 12 years ago. Well, it's 12 years ago when I wrote it, so we'll just say it's still 12 years ago. Hope you guys are all doing well. Illinois is still on lockdown. Are you guys still on lockdown where you are? I have grandkids in Idaho who are no longer on lockdown. I'm not sure what the other states are doing. I think Wisconsin is still on lockdown, the state's closest to us. So this is just kind of an interesting time, isn't it? I just saw a news report today and I didn't click on it and read it, but it was saying something about scientists have now discovered another mutant of this COVID-19 virus. So that's kind of frightening. So just an interesting world. But I'm grateful that you guys come and visit me in my attic once a week. So Andrew, should we get going?
We've been bouncing around between 3 to 5 viewers.
Okay.
Nancy just said yes on lockdown until the 15th in Virginia.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna get going. So, this is chapter 1, and as I said, this is 12 years ago. Rain was coming down in a steady drizzle, as it had all night, dampening the costumes of many trick-or-treaters, but not their spirits as they stoically made their way up to the front porch of the O'Reilly home. Mary opened the door to look at a pair of soggy ghosts and a dampened princess with eye makeup running down her adorable 6-year-old cheeks. "Trick or treat!" they called in unison, holding their treat bags out in front of them. "Oh my, you have wonderful costumes," Mary replied with a smile as she placed a handful of candy in each bag. "Did you do well tonight?" "We got lots," the smiling princess replied. Her front tooth was missing, which turned the last word into a slight lisp that Mary found endearing. "Lots?" Mary repeated. The three nodded. "Uh-huh," one of the ghosts replied in a slightly more masculine voice. "Lots of kids stayed home 'cause of the rain, and people wanted to get rid of their candy." "Well, it was wise of you to venture out in the rain," Mary said, wondering why their normally overprotective mother had let them out in such nasty weather. A moment later, she had her answer. Once again, the three nodded. "Yeah, and Mom had to work late, so she won't even know," the tallest of the ghostly pair answered. What time is it?" Mary glanced down at her watch. "Almost 8:30. The three looked at each other, their eyes widening. "We gotta go," this oldest said, picking up his sheet and heading toward the sidewalk. "Bye. Thanks." "You're welcome," Mary said, biting back a smile as she watched the three run down the sidewalk, their costumes flapping against their legs, their bags held against their chests as they hurried towards their house down the block. "Good luck." "Are you being a bad influence?" Sean, her older brother, asked as he leaned over her shoulder and watched the three along with her. He reached into the bowl she was holding and pulled out a candy bar. "No," she said with a grin, "but I could see us doing the exact same thing." They watched in delight as the kids entered the house just moments before their mother's car pulled into the driveway. "Do you think they'll get away with it?" she asked her brother. "Well, if it was me, I'd hightail it up to my bedroom, quickly stash my candy and costume under the bed, and then pull on a robe," he said. I heard that, Sean O'Reilly, his mother called from the living room. But I would never have gotten away with it, he said, sending a quick wink towards his sister, because Ma would have found us out. Because she has eyes in the back of her head, Art O'Reilly, one of the twins replied. Nope, she's psychic, Tom O'Reilly, the other twin, said. Nope, it's because she can read minds, Sean said, as he and Mary joined the rest of the family in the living room. Well, if you want to know the truth, Margaret O'Reilly, their mother said, it was because you were the worst liars I've ever met. The adult children were stunned into silence, and Timothy O'Reilly, their father, roared with laughter. And now you've done it, my darling, he said to his wife. You've given away our greatest secrets. Well, it's best they know their weaknesses before they go get married and try and loudy the spouse, she said with a chuckle, because that would be the end of that. But you believe our ghost stories, Mary inserted defiantly. Her mother smiled and nodded. And that's because they've got truth in them, she said, don't they? Mary looked around the room at her older siblings and her parents. All of them? She asked. All of them that will be told around the jack-o'-lantern tonight, her father said, his voice soft. He walked past her, locked the front door, and turned off the lights. The front porch was now dark, and the only light in the house was from the flickering glow of the jack-o'-lantern's candle placed in the middle of the coffee table. And now, who's the first to start? Chapter 2. When your father and I were just a young couple, and Sean was a wee boy, we lived in a small apartment on the north side of the city, Margaret O'Reilly began. It was a usual Chicago apartment, a long hallway that separated the front living room and a small bedroom from the kitchen, bathroom, and another bedroom in the back of the house. We'd set up the front bedroom as a nursery because it got the morning sun, and it was the warmest room in the house. And so her story began. Margaret O'Reilly wiped her hands on her apron and turned off the water in the sink. She had hoped to get the dishes done before Sean woke up, but she could hear his voice calling from the front of the apartment and knew the dishes would have to wait. Hurrying up the hallway, she could hear her son's laughter. He was such a happy boy, and at 2 years old, more than old enough to be moved out of the crib he was sleeping in and into a bed. But with a tight household budget, the new bed was still a few more months away. She paused outside the door with her hand on the doorknob and smiled as she listened to him babble away. It was almost as if he were having a conversation with somebody, she thought with a shake of her head. He was quite a talker, her son. Opening the door, she saw Sean standing in his crib on the side opposite the door. He turned to her, smiled, lifting up his arms towards her as he walked across his mattress. "Mama!" he cried as he hurried. "Mama!" She hurried over and picked him up, kissing him softly on the cheek. "Well, good morning, my big man," she said. "And how did you sleep?" She turned, walking back towards the door, and Sean looked over her shoulder and laughed aloud. Pausing, she turned around to see what caught his fancy, but there was nothing unusual in the room. "What do you see, Sean?" she asked. He clapped his chubby little hands together and then looked back towards the closet in the corner of the room. He laughed again, chuckling his deep belly laugh that was generally reserved for when his father was making faces at him. Margaret stared into the corner, lit by the sunlight streaming into the room, and felt a shiver coursed down her spine. Taking a deep breath, she shook her head. There was nothing there. She was just spooking herself. Okay, well, let's get you some breakfast, she said, holding him closer and turning away from the corner. How does oatmeal and brown sugar sound to you? Sugar, Sean repeated with a delighted smile. She carried him out of the room and closed the door firmly behind her. I'm just being silly, she said aloud. There's nothing in there but a child's room. For the next few days, Margaret felt uneasy about Sean's room. She found herself avoiding the room during the day, keeping Sean with her on the other side of the house, letting him nap in her own bed and play in the living room. When she finally had to put him to bed, she kept the bedroom door open so she could listen for him. One night, Timothy had to work late. Margaret was in the kitchen folding laundry when she heard the sound of a child laughing. Glancing up at the clock, she saw that it was nearly 10 o'clock and wondered what kind of mother allowed her child to be up at that hour. Worried, she opened the back door of the apartment and stepped out on the porch to see if she could locate the child. But stepping outside, she made a realization that had her blood growing cold. There was no noise outside. The laughter she'd heard had come from the inside of her apartment. Bolting back into the house, she ran up the hallway. Sean's door was closed. She knew she had kept it open to listen for him. She grabbed the handle and pushed the door wide open, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, she felt foolish. Sean was sound asleep, his fine blonde hair tossed across his forehead, and his little lips drawn upward into a smile. Looking around the room, she could see that everything was in place. His shelves were filled with blocks, cars, trucks, and stuffed animals. His favorite books were stacked on his dresser. His teddy bear was in his bed next to him, and his favorite toy, a push and spin carousel, was on the floor next to the closet door. She leaned over the crib, pulled his blanket up, and softly kissed his head. Good night, sweetheart, she whispered. Pleasant dreams. Turning and making sure the door was wide open, she returned to the kitchen to finish folding the laundry. Several hours later, Timothy came home. He entered the front door and then stopped in the front hallway, making sure his gun was stored away high on the shelf and his uniform jacket hung just below it. He paused when he heard some noise coming from his son's room and started to turn in that direction when Margaret called him from the kitchen. I've got your dinner warming in the oven, she called softly. He walked down the hall into the kitchen and gave her a quick kiss. I'll eat in a moment, he said. I want to go in and see Sean first, while he's awake. He's sound asleep, Margaret said. I checked on him about 30 minutes ago. That's funny, Timothy replied. I'm sure I heard his carousel playing when I walked into the house. Pushing past her large husband, Margaret ran down the hall to her son's room. Timothy followed close behind. She stopped at the doorway and swallowed a scream as she stared at the floor in the middle of she pointed. Sean lay sound asleep, just as he'd been when she checked on him. But the little toy, his favorite, was now in the middle of the room, and the carousel was still spinning as if somebody had just pushed the plunger down. Then they both heard the sound of a child's soft laughter echoing throughout the room. How long did it take you to move? Art asked his mother. And why didn't you leave Sean with the ghost? Sean playfully punched his brother in the arm. Thanks a lot, he quipped. It took us about 2 weeks to move, Margaret said, but we moved in with a friend during the time it took us to get out of the lease and move to a new place. Timothy chuckled. And once your mother sat down with the landlord and let him know exactly how she felt about his haunted apartment, he was only too happy to let us out of the lease. So, I've been associating with ghosts since I was little, Sean said, nodding his head slowly. Okay, that clears something up. What does that mean? Mary asked. It means I get to tell the next story, he replied. It was a dark and stormy night. He stopped and laughed. Actually, it was a beautiful late summer day, and I had just arrived on the campus of Notre Dame University. The main quad in Notre Dame was teeming with new students, and Sean was on his way to his new home for the semester, Soren Hall. He had his arms filled with boxes and had a backpack strung over his shoulders when the building came into view. Stopping in his tracks, his jaw dropped. He just stared. Come on, his friend Pete O'Brien said, slapping him on the back to move him forward. We've got a carload of stuff to carry in. Dude, we're going to live in a castle, Sean said, looking at the turrets at each corner of the building. It's a freaking castle. Nope, Pete said. It's a really old building, and it probably has drafts and really old bathrooms. How can you say that? Sean asked. This place is magical. This place has atmosphere. This place has ghosts. Sean didn't know where he'd heard those words or if he had just felt them. He looked around, but there was no one close except for Pete. Did you just hear that? He asked, knowing the answer before he even opened his mouth. Hear what? Pete asked impatiently. Come on, O'Reilly, stop daydreaming. Get moving. That night, after the boxes had been emptied, clothes hung up, and dinner eaten at the dining hall, Sean found himself wanting to get away from the crowds. Leaving Soren Hall, he walked towards the main quad. Noises from the dorms and activities on the other side of the campus faded away as he walked towards the center of campus and the iconic Washington Hall. Finding himself a bench among the large oak trees spread out among the green, he sat down, placed his elbows on his knees, cradled his head in his hands, and sighed. He wondered what his family was having for dinner, which football game Art and Tom were arguing over, and what his father had done at work that day. It's okay to miss them. Startled, Sean jumped and turned around to find an elderly priest standing behind him. I'm so sorry, Father, Sean said. You startled me. Chuckling softly, the priest nodded. Yes, I do have that habit of sneaking up behind students, he admitted. Of course, it tends to keep them worried when they're up to no good. Sean laughed softly. That's probably a good thing, he admitted. Then he looked around at the deserted quad. Am I allowed here? I mean, at night? This is my first day, so I'm not real sure about the rules. The priest smiled warmly. Yes, you are allowed here, he said, especially when you need a little time to be quiet and reflect on your life. That's why I walk the quad. Impressed with the priest's insight, he nodded. I didn't think I'd miss them this much, he admitted. I mean, I'm in college now. I'm not a kid. The priest's smile widened. No, you are certainly not a kid, he agreed. But missing your family has little to do with age or maturity. It has to do with love. He nodded with admiration. It's a good thing to take the time to think about them and miss them. Sean felt comfortable chatting with the elderly man. For some reason, he felt as if he could tell him anything. Duh, he said aloud. Confession. The priest shook his head, confused. I beg your pardon? Blushing, Sean rolled his eyes. I apologize, Father, he said. I was thinking that for some reason I could tell you anything and you'd understand. And then I thought, ah, the priest said with a grin, confession. And then he laughed. Yes, I do see. But I believe, Sean O'Reilly, that we have something more in common. We do? What? Sean asked. Then he shook his head. Wait, how do you know my name? I will answer your first question, and perhaps that will answer your second, the priest replied, the smile on his face turning thoughtful. Both you and I, Sean O'Reilly, believe in ghosts. Then the priest nodded his head and disappeared into the night. Did you ever find out who he was? Timothy asked. Sean nodded. Yeah, as soon as I got back into the dorm, he explained. I'd been using the door closest to my bedroom and hadn't gone through the main doors until that night. There was a statue of him in the lobby of Soren Hall. I had the pleasure of meeting the one and only Father Soren that night. How are we doing time-wise?
We are about 21 minutes in, almost 22 minutes now.
Oh, so we could do one more. We could do one more story. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's continue then. This is chapter 4. Well, I've a story for you, Timothy said, but I never found out who the ghost was. As I recall, this is a longer story, so we're going to go a little bit beyond the 30 minutes just to warn you guys up front.
Everyone's okay with that.
Everyone's okay with that? Good. Okay. Well, and let me start again to get into the mood here. Well, I have a story for you, Timothy said, but I never found out who the ghost was. The woman's body had been found beneath the metal staircase that led to the Damon Avenue elevated train stop. Just like the others, she had been strangled and her hair had been cut off, as if the killer was collecting his own version of scalps. And unfortunately, he had acquired quite a collection in the 6 weeks he had been terrorizing the city. Timothy O'Reilly had found her body and called it in. He was also the one assigned to go to her family's home and give them the news that the woman who was both a mother and a wife would never be coming home again. The young widower, with his 3 children gathered around him, wept openly. Timothy could do nothing for him but place his arm around the young man and let him cry. There were no words of consolation. This man and these children would feel the effects of the killer's action for the rest of their lives. Before leaving the small home, Timothy vowed that he would personally do everything he could to make sure that the murderer was caught. The next day, Timothy arrived at the station 30 minutes before his shift and went upstairs to the sergeant's office. He knocked on the door and waited for permission to enter. O'Reilly, his sergeant said with a smile. Good to see you. What's up? I want in on the scalp murderers, Timothy replied. I want to help solve the case. The sergeant stared at Timothy for a few moments without answering. And then he adjusted the glasses that were resting on his nose and leaned back in his chair. And this is the same Timothy O'Reilly that's turned down a promotion to detective every time I've offered it to him? The sergeant asked, his eyebrows raised. Aye, it is, Timothy replied. And I still don't want that blasted job. I just want to help solve this case. Why? Why? Timothy asked. He leaned forward, propping his fingers on the edge of the sergeant's desk, and spoke. I've found 3 of the women he's murdered. I've had to go to 3 homes and tell family members that this animal has changed their lives forever. He said slowly and clearly, I want him caught. I want him tried. I want him locked up forever. So it's personal? The sergeant asked. You tell a 4-year-old her mommy's not coming home ever again, and tell me that it's not personal, he replied. Sergeant nodded. Okay, I'm sold, he said. Let me make a call, and I'll let you know. Timothy stood up and nodded. Thank you, he said. I appreciate it. Go get ready for your shift, and then come back up here before you go out, the sergeant requested. Yes, sir. Timothy went down to the locker room to change from his street clothes into his uniform. He walked to the far end of the room where his locker was located, away from most of the younger men in the force. He unbuttoned his shirt and hung it on a hook in the locker. And then he started to pull his t-shirt over his head when he heard someone approaching. Hey, old man, you still down here? One of the younger police officers asked, walking around the wall of lockers. Yeah, Timothy said. What's up? The sergeant wanted me to tell you that your request has been denied, the young cop said. Says he tried, but no can do. Said it'd be a waste of time coming up to his office. Subject's closed. Timothy took a deep breath to hold back the anger and nodded to the young man. Thanks for delivering the message, he said. Yeah, thanks for not killing the messenger, the officer replied. Timothy slammed his locker door and the sound echoed throughout the room. Darn it, he growled. Now what? Suddenly, a file fell from above the lockers and landed at his feet. Bending over, he picked it up. It was a file from the old archives. It was dated 10 years ago. Opening the folder, he examined it and shook his head. The victim had been strangled, and her hair had been cut off, just like the victims in the current killing spree. He looked at the file in his hand and then up to the top of the lockers. How the heck had this file made its way to the locker rooms? Well, he wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Now all he had to do was check the archive for any other files like this one. The archives were in the lowest level of the building, in cardboard boxes on a series of steel shelves. Opening the door, he flipped on the light and stared at the hundreds of boxes before him. How in the world was he ever going to find the right files? He looked at the date on the file he carried. He could start with the date, he thought. At least that would get him in the vicinity. He started to walk toward the back of the large room when he heard a noise coming from the side of the room. It sounded like a box had been moved. He turned and noticed one of the boxes was out of alignment with the others. Could that have been the box that this file had been taken from? He hurried over and examined the box. Yes, it had the same dates. Lifting the cover, he flipped through the files and found 3 more folders with the same MO from a crime that was never solved. These are good, he said softly. But why wasn't this case solved? There was enough evidence. Suddenly, a box across the room slipped from a top shelf of a shelving unit and crashed to the floor. Timothy looked around. Nothing could have caused the box to move. His heart pounded in his chest. Nothing human. The radio on his belt squeaked, and Timothy jumped. O'Reilly! The voice came over the speaker, and he recognized it as his sergeant. Where the heck are you? Timothy picked up the radio and pressed the button. I'm doing some paperwork, he said. What's up? I want you in my office. Pronto, the sergeant replied. Yes, sir, Timothy answered. Don't go. Timothy froze. That wasn't just a box moving or a file falling. That was a voice. What did you say? He asked, his voice a squeaking whisper. Don't go. They'll kill you. Timothy shook his head. No, they won't do that, he said. The Sarge is a good guy. They killed me, the voice replied. What? Timothy asked, too confused to be frightened. His heart beat even faster when he noticed a folder slowly working its way out from between the other folders crammed into the box, as if an invisible hand was pulling it out. It slid out of the box and floated through the air until it was hanging directly in front of Timothy. He took a deep breath and then grabbed it. The outside labeled the folder as classified. I can't look at this, Timothy said. You must. Taking a deep breath, Timothy opened the file and looked inside. There was a signed confession to the scalp murders from the former mayor's nephew, dated from 10 years ago. Timothy shook his head. The former mayor's nephew had just been named to a position in City Hall. He'd never gone to jail, never been prosecuted. Take it to Judge Tomlinson, the voice whispered. Now, tonight. How about Judge Callahan? Timothy asked, naming another judge he'd worked with. He thought he heard an ironic chuckle, and then the voice replied, No, Judge Tomlinson. Now. Timothy started towards the door when he heard noise coming from the other side. Darn, he whispered, the jig's up. Not yet. Suddenly the lights went out and Timothy was plunged into darkness. He heard startled voices on the other side of the door as they searched for light, but he knew it wouldn't be too long before they turned on their flashlights and made their way inside. This way. Timothy looked around and saw the faintly illuminated figure of a man. Follow me. He was led to a small window back behind the shelves and was able to crawl out. Once he reached the outside, he turned back to thank whoever it was who'd helped him. But all he saw was darkness. He drove his own car to the judge's house and presented her with the files. Within a few hours, several high-ranking police officials, including his own sergeant, were arrested for conspiracy. And Timothy never heard the voice again. Do you have any idea who he might have been? Art asked his father. Timothy shook his head. I have my own theories, he said, but nothing I could ever prove. Margaret reached over and took his hand in hers. Whoever he was, I'll be eternally grateful, she said, and I hope one day he finds peace, and I hope they find out who killed him. I'm sure they will, Timothy said, when it's the right time. Okay, we're going to stop there, and it's time for questions and answers. I tried to find the puppet so it could take over for Andrew, and I couldn't find it. So the part of Andrew is being played by a gray gnome. So, okay.
It's pretty accurate with in this lockdown.
No, it's actually not really, but I had to do something. So ask me or ask Andrew a question.
So We got a lot of good reactions.
Oh, nice! Yay! Thanks.
During the stream, which is good. Earlier, Teresa Snyder.
Hi, Terry.
Terry Snyder. Hello, Terry Snyder. Oklahoma's opening up. I think it's too early. I won't be going out yet. Too many health issues, so I won't risk it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And and I think this is a whole new world. I think we're all going to be wearing masks wherever we go. But yeah, be safe. I think that's the most important thing.
Make sure to get fun masks.
I saw one that it had like really big lips, but then you could pull it, and then it was like a big mouth. I think I want that.
Same.
Okay, Andrew and I both want that.
Nancy said, "Excellent reading. Love your ghost voice."
Oh, thank you very much. I did have to change a couple words because when I write, I can write swear words, but when I read, especially considering the audience, we'll say "dang it" and "heck." Okay, so but I'm glad you like the ghost voice. Thank you.
Rebecca Hackbart says, "I have a mask with stars on it."
Oh, I bet it's pretty. Yeah, I think there's going to be this whole new revolution of like elegant masks, like steampunk masks and Phantom of the Opera and Mardi Gras. I mean, just think haute couture masks. That could be a thing, right?
I'm excited for the video game inspired ones. I don't know what video games you could do, but I'm sure there's some. I'll think of them.
Yeah.
Bobby Ramsey said, "I missed it, but we'll be listening soon. Thank you. I listen while sewing masks."
Oh, well, thank you. That is so great. Well, I hope you enjoy it, and don't hurt your finger when you sew. I always do that. So yeah.
Terry Snyder said, "Good business to get into."
Right. For all of you budding entrepreneurs, this is the time. I've heard people on Etsy. I think I'm saying it right. I always say it wrong. Etsy. There's businesses making masks on Etsy where people can't keep up with the orders. So this is a budding entrepreneurial opportunity.
Yeah. Nancy Adams said, "I saw some masks on Facebook that had like feathers, sequins."
Ooh. See, that would be so elegant. It will be like, how we all have scarves? It'll be the new scarf. It'll be mask accessories.
I feel like a reverse masquerade. Like in masquerades, you cover your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's masquerade, spelled M-A-S-K.
Oh. So he just gave somebody an idea for the name of your business, masquerade.
If you wanted to give me, 5% of your profits, that's okay. Thank you, Terry Snyder. She said, "Good, Andrew." So any questions you have for
that I haven't already answered? It's like, oh, she's already said everything. What else can there be? I'm trying to think if we've had any spooky experiences lately. In the house.
We've told a few stories on Terri Reid's attic,
right?
About some of the stairs stuff.
So I'm doing this podcast, not a live, just a recorded podcast thing, and so for Patreon, I think that's what we did it. So Patreon is the only one that they ask for people to subscribe and actually pay money, and so what they ask us to do is like once a month do a special one that nobody else gets. And so we were talking about recent ghosts or stairs. Mm-hmm. Because do you notice? I don't know if you guys really notice, but ghosts are on stairs a lot. I mean, a lot of the famous ghosts, they're coming downstairs. The ghosts that we've seen in our house coming downstairs. So I'm doing this whole thing on stairs. And we have a house guest right now who is originally from Los Angeles, but she couldn't go home. Yeah. She was in college. She couldn't go home because LA was so bad.
The Linwood area.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Linwood area. So right in. So we said, well, come here, because she's going to college online. So she's staying with us. And she was up here in the studio, and Andrew was working on something, and she was helping him on something. And she looked down the stairs and she saw the same man dressed in overalls and flannel shirt that I had seen years ago.
It was such an interesting, because I didn't notice the shift in her demeanor, but she walked past the stairs and kind of like she looked down. I wasn't really paying attention, but then as soon as she passed the stairs, she was like, Andrew, can I get on your computer and go into YouTube quickly? And I was like, yeah, sure. Is everything okay? She's like, yeah, I just need to confirm some things. What she remembered distinctly was the overalls. That was the thing that she honestly didn't like. That was the thing that she saw, that she remembered clearly having been similar. But when she went and re-listened to the description of this man that it came up, she was like, yep, that fits. Yep, that fits. Yep, that was him. That was him that I saw down there.
And when I had seen him, it was years ago when I had seen him, and my office was up here and it was like 4:30 in the morning. I had worked through the night and I just turned and I saw him on the stairs. My first impression was Dan Blocker, who was like a Haas Cartwright. Some of you probably, if you're young, don't know who he is, but he was just the nicest man, and he died way too young. But he was like this football player size of a man, and he played on a TV show called Bonanza, and so that was who came to mind. So she told me her story, and so I took my phone and I looked up Dan Blocker, and there was a picture of him, and I showed her the picture, and she said, "Oh, that's him. That's who I saw." So that was kind of that was fun and creepy and ghosty and all those kinds of things all mixed together. Yeah.
We've gotten a few questions.
Okay, good.
And thoughts. So, my favorite comment so far, and I is my favorite because I'm not sure how many people actually know about it. Rebecca Hackbart said, "Have you heard of Siren Head, or does that not count since it's not a ghost?" Have you heard of Siren Head?
I haven't. Tell me who's Siren Head?
It's an SCP, Special Containment something. I don't remember. It's an awesome group of people that are coming together and creating these fictional ghost stories. There's a bunch of different ones, and Siren Head is one of the most recent. Or no, he actually is not that recent, but he's becoming really popular, and he's just like this. It's not really a ghost. It's more of like a paranormal guy who has a siren for a head, and you know that he's around when there's a siren going off in a place where a siren wouldn't normally go off. And I have to do more research in it. I heard about it because of a Let's Player that I watch. So somebody who plays video games. I'm picturing like one of the old Looney Tune cartoons. And, somebody's face all of a sudden turns into a siren. Kind of like that, except for a lot taller. A lot creepier. It's like a Slender Man type thing. With a siren on his... Oh, and Rebecca Hackbart says, and he eats people using the siren to attract people. So, and the siren can do normal siren noises. It can also do, voices. And, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of creepy. I like it. It's really imaginative. I love it. Some other comments. Ooh. Well, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to have to look into this. Yeah. I agree. So Nancy Adams asked. Hi, Nancy. Do you have dreams that are basically signs from past relatives of things that will happen soon? I have had dreams of relatives that had passed away, but they tend not to be, I know there's a fancy word for this, dreams of the future. There's a fancier word for it, like prognosticated dreams of the future. But they tend to be more like precognition. What? Precognitive. Thank you. Mm-hmm. See, I keep him around because he's so smart. They tend to be more comforting dreams. They tend to happen soon after somebody's passed away. And they come to me and they just tell me that they love me and that they're safe. And so, but no, I haven't had any
this is your future. So I've got some deadbeat relatives here that could be helping me with some stuff, and they're not. I do appreciate that they're okay and they love me. But no, that would be kind of a cool experience.
Also, while talking about Grandpa Molnick's up here, Nancy Adams said, I have an average of 3 friends that hang in my house. I know one is my guardian, only realized who he was about 15 years ago.
Nice. Is he a relative? Often they say that our guardian angels are actually our ancestors who would love us more. I mean, it's like your great 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 grandfather or your great 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 grandmother watches out for you. Mine are constantly shaking their heads in disgust.
Same.
Or surprise. Or rolling their eyes. A lot of rolling their eyes going on.
A lot of laughing at me.
Yeah.
I'm sure. A lot.
Yep. Poking the guy next to him saying, watch what she does this time.
You want to see something real funny?
That's right. Yeah. I love that. So the other guys, and then maybe it's hard to respond, but did you figure out who the other guys are, who your friends are in your house?
While she's responding,
okay.
Terry Snyder and Nancy were both. Nancy Adams said yes, Haas, when talking about.
Oh, okay.
And then Terry Snyder said, wasn't it Grandpa Jolie? Molly. I know Molly isn't right, but I can't remember the name.
Molnix. His name was Shriver Molnix, and so he was Grandpa Molnix. Yeah.
And then she just commented saying, I had someone sitting on the side of my bed, and I was too afraid to look behind me. Long story short, it was my granddad, and he passed away a few days later. He told me everything will be all right.
Oh, I'm getting good shivers right now. I love that story. And I think we've spoken about this before. When we have these paranormal experiences, why do we think if we don't look at it, it won't hurt us? Or if we pull a sheet, even the big thread counts over us, we're safe. Okay, I'm just gonna pull a sheet over me and I'm gonna be safe. Why do we think that? There must be some kind of a instinctual thing. If I don't make eye contact, I'm fine. Or if I don't, yeah. But I think that's cool that your great grandpa visited you. How cool is that?
Nancy replied, I think it's a 5 times great grandfather. I drew a picture of him one day, and my granddaughter said she had seen him too.
How cool is that? Have you? Okay, you're gonna have to help me with this. Is it Cokeville? The
Cokeville Miracle. Mm-hmm. Cokeville.
If you haven't, look that up.
With Sean Austin, right?
Well, that's the movie, but it's based on a true story where it was like in the 80s, 70s, 80s.
Utah, wasn't it?
It was Wyoming, right on the Utah-Wyoming border.
Gotcha.
And this terrorist, well, okay, so I'm going to tell you the story and spoil it. Basically, this terrorist went in.
Spoiler alert of a historical thing.
Came into this grammar school in this little town of Cokeville, Wyoming. And he brought all the kids into one room and the teachers, and he had a bomb with shrapnel in it. And he put it in the middle of the room. And the movie says that he accidentally exploded it. Or his wife accidentally. He was like a total nutcase. And this bomb exploded in this little classroom with all of these kids, over 100 kids in this classroom. And this detective or law enforcement fellow went around after, because none of the kids were hurt. And the kids started talking about the people dressed in white that had come to them and told them, to move away or where to sit. And then the people dressed in white surrounded the man and his bomb. And these were like 3rd and 4th graders relating individually, separately from each other when they went to their home. And then the kids started looking at pictures of great grandmothers and pointing them out that was their person in white that had come to protect them. Great. It's a great movie. It's one of those, I'm going to cry a lot movie, but really a great, powerful miracle movie.
Talked about angels last week or something, and want to know about an angel, that I think that is a great example of some angels. Nancy Adams said, "I've only been afraid of one visitor and had to do some serious praying to get rid of him. He did leave."
Good. I understand. I've had 2 experiences like that in my life, and I totally understand that feeling. Good for you for getting him out of there. That's excellent.
Yeah. If you can't leave yourself, the best thing to do is to try to get rid of them.
Yeah. It's your house. Tell him to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? We're at 50 minutes right now.
Go us. I'm really not moving Andrew as much as I should because he's on his chair, kind of moving around, doing this kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Terry Snyder says Rog is from Wyoming, and he knows the story.
Oh, cool! It's a great story. We have the movie, and it's
2 questions.
Okay.
Come up. So Terry Snyder says, "Are you ever coming to Are you ever coming to Oklahoma? Not Wyoming."
I need to. I totally need to. Yeah, that's a great place. I've driven through it, but I just need to stop and see you. So yes, that would be a fun thing to do.
It'd be fun to. I think it'd be fun one day to have you do like a tour or something, but we'd have to just know that we could get enough people to come and see it and make sure it was financially feasible.
Andrew's my producer. He thinks about these things.
Nancy Adams says, "Any info on the writing vids you were talking about?"
The writing.
Writing videos.
So we didn't get a whole lot of feedback, but I still am up to do it. So when would be a good time? You guys let us know. When would be, is this time, like if we stopped like the ghost story stuff and stopped that at like 4 and we did the writing thing from like 4 to 5, or should we do it totally separate, unique time? So yeah, you guys tell me what works for you, and then we'll put something together, because I love the question and answer ability. I mean, I think that's really important because, I can present some basic ideas, but then I want your questions, and yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we'll probably create a post on your author page and whatever.
Okay.
Just kind of asking, what
Okay.
people would like for that. What would be the easiest for everyone? Because I think that would be a really good thing for people to do. Right now, a lot of people don't have. They have a lot of time to do stuff.
Yeah.
It would be a good time to start writing, and some people just don't know where to start. So,
you know what? So I will put, as soon as we finish here, I'll go downstairs to my office and put basically a questionnaire post on the Terri Reid author page and just get all of your feedback. And then we'll make a decision by the end of the week and let everybody know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've committed to something.
Making us commit.
We'll do this. Thank you for asking. Thank you. And getting me back on track. I need that in my life.
Bobby Ramsey asks, could you link to the podcast service you use as well on your author page?
Yes. And there's a Facebook page called Terri Reid's Attic. I think it's just a public Facebook page. And it has all of because we're at Patreon. We're at iTunes or Apple.
Yeah.
It's called Apple.
It's called Apple Podcasts now.
We're working to get onto Himalaya. Mm-hmm. Who else are we on?
We're with basically everyone. With Spotify. We're with Google Podcasts. We're with Stitcher. We're with a bunch of other people. So, I mean, honestly, if you went onto whatever podcast service you use and typed in Terri Reid's Attic, you'd be able to find us 9 times out of 10. So we're still working through some kinks, like for instance with Himalaya.
Himalaya is a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, they're.
But yeah, check out the Terri Reid Terri Reid's Attic Facebook page, because that'll give you all the information.
Mhm.
But I can also, if you still need it, I can certainly put that on my author page.
Yeah, if anything, like a post or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for asking, Bobby. Okay. I think we could probably start wrapping some things up.
Okay. All right. Hey, thank you for coming to my attic again. And we'll just we'll keep doing this until at least until Illinois is on lockdown, which will be the end of May. And maybe we'll keep going, and then we'll stick in that writers thing this month sometime. So we'll get that done. And
share this with your friends.
Yeah, please do. And share, go ahead and share the link to the video, because a lot of people can't get there Tuesday afternoon, so we love it when people are able to watch it later on. So have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care. Bye.